Oh, hello, hello. Good evening, or whatever time zone you're in, all over the world. This is Personal Development Productions with my partners here, Kelly Chiasson. Kelly, hello, hello.
Woo!
And Dr. Lester Bailey. Hello, how are you?
Hello there, Samantha, Professor.
And Professor Samantha Glass. So good evening. Again, I'm mixing up my time zones because I don't know where you are, but we're going to be talking about sharing your voice or having that voice tonight. And I'm actually going to throw this over to one of my partners because I can go on for hours on this topic. So let's hear my partner's visions or ideas about having a voice. Dr. Lester Bailey, should we start with you?
I guess so, so you did. So many times in our lives, we feel that we're being stifled. How many times have you had the most creative idea, but yet you were afraid to take it to your team, your boss, someone who really looks at you and they say they love to hear what you have to say, but they stifle you. They don't let you actually talk. You ever seen somebody who's had an idea to create something and yet the world told you, no, it cannot happen. It is impossible for it to happen. One day there was a cartoonist and the cartoonist drew a cartoon by the name of Dick Tracy. And I'm sure everybody's at least heard of Dick Tracy if you've never seen it. And Dick Tracy, every time he wanted to have a conversation with someone, he would go to his wristwatch and begin having that conversation. But they told him that was impossible. Who would want to see it? But in the cartoon form, we thought that that was the most marvelous thing ever. So that way his voice can be heard wherever that he is. Now, zooming years later, this guy by the name of Steve Jobs always remembered that look. And they told Steve Jobs that no one would want that. No one would want a computer that they can actually carry around with them. No one would ever want to be able to have a conversation on their phone. No one wants to take a telephone out of their house and be able to speak. But yet today, how does the world speak to each other? We all find that way to be able to have that conversation because we have something to say. Elon Musk just recently told the world that he wants to go into space and he would have space explorers, people who can actually sit there and jump into space. They told him he was crazy. That Alzheimer's disease that he has, it says that is not setting in your mind right. But he went about it saying that I will be heard. You will hear me. So he went up into space. He got up there faster than anyone else. And they told him, it cannot be done. You need to have NASA give you approval. He says, whether they give me approval or not, I'm still going. I have all the research. I'm still going. Whenever you have an idea, a thought, something that's in your subconscious mind to get out with your creativity, stop being stifled by the ones who tell you no. No only serves you for a moment. It does not serve you for a lifetime because what is eating you up from the inside will turn around and come out eventually. So I'm going to pass this to our master entrepreneur, Miss Kelly Chiasson. Kelly, what are some of your ideas about this?
I like this topic. Using our voice. From at a young age, using my voice was, I don't know if you'd call it a direction or instruction instructions. I don't know, but it was so I was told use your voice because when we use our voice, it actually activates conscious growth. Um, and that I think is really fitting with what the three of us have been doing in the personal development space for over 2 years now. And, I think it's fair to say, in lieu of when we came live last week, after an end of summer hiatus here and coming back as from High Five Club to PDP Productions, Personal Development Productions, we talked last week about when are we most ourselves. So it's interesting that tonight's topic is using our own voices, and what does that look like? What does it mean? How do we feel about it? And I think, when we can use our voice as a barometer. The world has not met and has not heard everything we have to share about ourselves and who we are and what we bring to our personal tables, our business tables, our friendship tables, and our, colleagues, peers, go down the line, familial tables for extended relationships. I think, using our voices, when I mentioned, a barometer, sometimes they say things can have the tendency to repeat themselves. And we've talked a lot about our habitual environments and what kind of actions are we taking, decisions are we making. Well, whether it's a voice that we're like, you hear me now talking with my partners, or if it's the voice inside my head, my subconscious thoughts, what am I saying to myself? If the same thing, oh, wow, now let's not say that 5 times. If the same things keep repeating themselves for me in my life, my husband and I are raising 4 kids. I am an entrepreneur. If I see patterns that I'm not appreciating, then I have to go to, for me, I've learned that I have to go to my own voice. Can I change my verbiage internally and externally? Is there something there that needs to change? What is happening subconsciously? What's happening with my thinking and my thoughts, which is my words, which are my voice. Now, once I've identified that, what do I need to do? How can I use my voice outwardly to start making changes? Outwardly, I've used my voice to say, I'm going a different direction. I've used my voice to say, if dependent upon my children's wishes, no, thank you. That's not what we're going to choose right now. That's not what's happening. Maybe it's being, I've been supportive of, A through M, but really I need to tighten my focus and be supportive of individuals A through F. Right. And it's, whatever, there's a million directions to go. So that kind of sounds all over the map a little bit. But for me, when I think of using my voice, it's, I just really remember as a young girl being told how important it is to use my voice, because not everybody has that luxury. Not everybody has that privilege, and not everybody learns how, that it's okay to use it. And so once you learn to use it, once we learn to use it, once I have learned to use it, as I'm teaching my kids to use theirs, it absolutely activates conscious growth. And I am a big fan of that. And that's a lot of why we're, the 3 of us come here all the time with the same message, is because we live and we believe in conscious growth, living on purpose with a purpose.
That's amazing. It's interesting, you guys, when you say this, all I can think of from what your comments was the fact that for so long I did not have a voice. For so long that I was really afraid, just my past, again, being bullied. And every time I would try to speak up, other kids would silence me. So I would be afraid to have that voice. And as I grew older, I was always afraid to talk to people, right? I was always worried about the judgment because of my past. And I couldn't share what was happening to me. I couldn't tell people about it. I couldn't tell people when things were wrong. I was just so ashamed of myself at that time, because I just didn't realize that it wasn't my fault, right? I didn't understand that. I didn't get that these kids were doing this just to be popular and to be cool. So let's pick on somebody. Let's have a target, right? So for so long, I didn't have a voice, and I couldn't turn to anybody to be my voice because I was just too ashamed. So over time, as I looked back and understood that this was not my fault, and it really is just a product of age and a product of wanting to belong in a group, I wanted to make sure I was that voice for myself and for other people. And I guess that's kind of why I do what I do, because there's so many people out there that were in the same situation that I was in, specifically that of being bullied, right? I know that there's other situations too, but, people are afraid. They're afraid to speak their mind. They're afraid if they say something wrong, then people are going to judge them, or, they analyze. Some people just I don't want to say overanalyze, but it's true. You get to overanalyze your words, and that actually eats you inside when you start questioning and doubting yourself, right? So this topic is interesting, because it just takes that confidence inside us to start to realize that our voice is important, and it really doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. Things have to be said, right? Things have to be said to advocate for ourselves. And I always say, when I see something that is not right, I call it out and I advocate for others. And I'm lucky enough to be in a place in the world that allows me to do that, right? There are countries in the world where if you tried to speak your mind, you get punished. You go to jail. It goes as far as even being murdered, right? Because those are the laws in that country. But it really is. It's important to understand how blessed we are to be able to share our voice, to be able to vote, to be able to stand up for ourselves. And the biggest thing for me is having a voice and making a difference. That's the way that I see it, is I can make a difference. I share my story, just like my partners have, and I make a difference. Even if it's one person in the world that I help, that to me is success. So I think this topic is great. It's a topic that it's hard to talk about, but it's empowering at the same time, right? So, Lester?
And that's a good thing, because silence speaks a lot, but someone needs to understand what your silence is. When you speak to nothing, when your voice is not being used to speak to something, you're speaking quietly to people who are not listening to what you have to say. Your body language will speak up for you each and every time. If you ever looked at someone and when they were angry and you thought you weren't being heard, but somebody put that look in their face and their eyes get a certain way and a frown comes up on it, and you're looking at them, but they're speaking loudly. How you use a voice is up to you. In 1963, Dr. Martin Luther King was tired of the things that were going on in the country. So he decided that he was going to take a walk to a park. It just happens to be the biggest and loudest park ever. It was one that nobody really paid much attention to, because it was not the focal point of the world, but it was where the president stood. He decided he was going to go out there and tell everybody what was going on. Crowds came from everywhere. Now, this is in a time that there was no such thing as a cell phone. We know that we can get contacted and, somebody gives us a cell phone. Hey, everybody meet. You had 1 million people, because each one used their voice to call someone and say, hey, Lester, Kelly, Samantha are doing a YouTube. Get on their YouTube channel. Hit like, hit share. When Dr. Martin Luther King told everybody, listen, I'm going to go and watch, I'm going to make this speech, he only thought that he may have spoken to 100 people, maybe 1,000, let's say 5,000, which would have been absolutely incredible. But can you imagine it being over 1 million people? To hear someone just speak to show you what they were thinking of and the importance of being able to hear what you have to say. I remember when I was in the first book that I was ever in, and I had to go and do a book signing. I was prepared to do a book signing. It was no problem. But they asked me to go on stage and speak. Now, most of the time when people are asked to go on stage, and my partner, Professor Glass here, will tell you, when you have to speak to a crowd of people, you may not know what to say, but your mouth needs to open and not your butt needs to sit down. You need to stand up and to be heard. But so many times, as soon as we open our mouths, our voices go sit down and we're standing there trying to move our lips, trying to say something. Everything has already been in your heart. It's been in your mind, but you're the person. Could you imagine being the chief executive officer to your business and you never speak to the people? You never speak to a customer. You never speak to your staff. You never speak to anybody about it. But yet you're the best person ever to do the job. But if they can't hear you, see, we talk about things being in our subconscious mind and being in our actual conscious mind. Our subconscious speaks all the time. There's nothing you can say. Some people will overthink. You ask a person one particular question, and especially, and I'm not talking directly about women, but women tend to understand this. You don't know how to quiet the voices that are in your head. It's like, when was the last time you've had a silent moment in your head? Wanda Sykes says it as a comedian. She says, women just don't know how to shut up. They keep telling themselves to shut up and tell themselves to shut up, shutting up. But their voices cry out. Your voice is so important to the next invention, to the next multi-trillion-dollar business, to the next, thing that may happen. Your children, if you say nothing to your children, I can guarantee you, your children will voice their opinion. If you ever talk to a 2-year-old child and you think that, it's difficult, I mean, it's easy to talk to a 2-year-old and yet they can voice their opinion at 2 and you're still having problems when you're 22.
Right.
You have to be able to say what it is, because that inner voice inside of you, we talk about having that dream, that goal, that desire, that blindness that's in you that never leaves you. That's your voice. It's time to let it ring. Tell the world what you're thinking. It's not up to them to believe in you. It's up to you to believe in yourself. Mamapreneur?
Well, I like what you said, because when you put all of those together, it's, we talk about being self-aware, and I think it's good when we figure out how we're using our voice. What voices do we need to turn off permanently or temporarily? But considering the emotions that we have that match, or I guess that go along with the process that we're needing to use our voice for. So when we're looking at wanting to be to use it, if we're airing or communicating an issue, a concern, a problem, something that we don't like, something that has happened that's not, that isn't great, that's using our voice in a vulnerable way, and then using it as a strength. And so it's really important when you're talking about those examples, Lester. I don't know, that to me goes to really understanding what our emotions are tied at that present time. And so when we can really get in alignment with our feelings and how we want to activate our voices, and we may choose to be vulnerable. We may choose, okay, this is how I need to show up this way with my voice. But that's how we create, with the examples from Sam. All those years of not finding her voice and needing to, because it was shut down, not by choice, but that's what it was. So she had to find her voice. Lester's giving examples of when do we find our voice, when do we not? I'm mentioning how are we tied to all of these experiences and circumstances that we need to use our voice. So we can, I don't know, it just, that's it. We have emotions that go with all of the times that we need to use our voice. So it's making a decision to use our voice to work for us, to serve us, so we can serve others at the end of the day.
Right. And if you don't use your voice, then think of that. You're missing out, right? You could be that person that makes change, right? Just by showing up and using your voice, right? Can you imagine if, you know, you, I don't know, I'm just trying to think of a great example. I've seen some things in my career. I know we all have seen things in our life, but I've seen things in my career where if I didn't say something, people would be hurt, right? That's what I'm saying. You could be that person that steps up and uses your voice and helps people, or you stay quiet. And if you stay quiet and I stay quiet and everyone else stays quiet, we're just allowing things to happen. We're enabling negative things to happen. So we have to understand the power of our voice, right? Our voice is more powerful than we think it is. There are people that say to me, oh, Samantha, I'm just one person. You're one person, yes, but your voice, your words, the confidence that comes out of you when you express yourself and your feelings and you advocate, that's very powerful.
I love that you said this. Oh, sorry, Sam.
That's okay.
I love that you said that, because I was different program, different day, or different show, different day. But I was asked once when I was younger. I've got a number. I'm sure the three of us have plenty of examples of this. But I remember being asked. I don't know if it was my mom or my dad. Who's going to benefit? And it was a question of if I'm going to use my voice and I'm going to choose to speak up, who stands to benefit and why? And needing to really look at that. So when you're talking about, you know, standing quiet, you know, I talk to our kids. It's not just the individuals in a bullying example doing the physical bullying. It's also the silent bystanders that don't say anything. Mm-hmm. And it really is just as bad, because no one's speaking up, no one wants to, or if they're asked questions, there's just lots of things. So regardless of what platform you're looking at using your voice, you know, ask yourself who will benefit. And it could be that in a number of situations, maybe the only person benefiting is you, and that is okay.
Well, sorry, but if nobody benefits, that's okay too. The point is this: people say that society says, oh, there's a problem with this, there's a problem with that, but nobody wants to step up and have the voice and lead, right? Not everyone is a leader. A lot of people will follow as long as one person stands up and has that voice. So what you're going to find, and we've seen it many times in history, is that people will not stand up and they will allow things to happen. They want change, but they're not willing to have their voice. And that's the big question. Why? Why don't you want to have your voice heard? And that's what boggles my mind. There's so many positive changes we can make in the world, but yet people are not standing up. They are not letting their voice be heard. So we can really look at this from a personal perspective, a professional perspective, and a global perspective, that we really are the change. It's up to us, right? So your voice is so powerful. People just need to realize their voice is powerful and they are powerful as a person. So, Lester?
And it's a good thing as you're saying that. It all goes back to when we were kids. Some of us were bullied. And that bully was able to stand up there and speak their voice. And we did not know what to do. See, you just got a little bit older, but you're still working to beat that bully. Yeah. You know, Professor says, you know, society became that bully. When society became that bully for your voice, when are you going to learn to stand up and to speak up and speak out? You have to be able to find that inner voice, that voice that tells you, even if I get knocked down, I can stand up. But you're going to hear me. You're going to hear what I have to say. You're going to know that I, and when we say I, we're talking about each and every one of us, not individually. We're talking that voice. When you stand up and speak up, it doesn't matter whether you speak up at a certain tone. It doesn't matter how fast or what language or whom you are. Once you learn how to speak up and say it, feel it, sound it out, you'd be surprised how things change immediately. It doesn't take but that one time to change your entire life. And I'd love for us to be able to do it, because you think about, how did this end up being personal development? Well, it is personal development when you stand up and can speak out. You thought that we were just coming up with a topic that had just a little bit of it, but each one of us gave you a different perspective of how to use that voice that you have inside of you, how powerful, how strong it is. You do not always have to be right. See, most of us keep thinking, I got to be right. If I don't say it right, somebody's not going to hear me. You can say something in the wrong way and someone can interpret it for you who has a different way of giving their sound, giving their voice, to be able to make it sound so beautifully. And some people can make the thing that you said is so beautiful sound so ugly. Like I can, example, it rained outside. For somebody else, it rained outside. It's the way that someone can give you that message. So from here on, we're going to always tell you to use the voice that you have. Leave us some notes in the comment lines. We want to be more interactive than we've ever been before. We want to be able to answer you so that way that you can feel inclusive, because we want to hear your voice. Even if it's in a message form, you can't say it wrong, because we know how to see ourselves as ourselves. Trust me, the professor has to get up there in front of a judge sometimes. And if a judge disagrees with her, she has to still be able to put her voice out there.
Pretty much.
The mompreneur has actually had more females become entrepreneurs because of what? Her voice had to be heard. Understand that every one of our voice counts. We just need to hear from you also. Yep. So our favorite part of the show is final thoughts. Go ahead, mompreneur.
Your voice matters.
Mic drop.
Woo! That's hard to follow. But, one of my favorite songs, I'm going to say her name incorrectly, Sara Bareilles. Am I saying it wrong? The song Brave. Okay. So I'm sorry if I mispronounced her name. I don't know if she's going to watch this. I'm going to tag her. But there's a part of the song where it says, innocence, your history of silence won't do you any good. Did you think it would? Let your words be anything but empty. Why don't you tell them the truth? And then it says, say what you want to say and let the words fall out. Honestly, I want to see you be brave. And I love this song. I can relate to it because this is, and it's going to make me cry. So I'm on YouTube crying. I've already cried on Facebook, just so everybody knows. But for me, really, it's about being brave. Don't doubt your doubts. Don't be fearful. Have your voice. Your voice is so powerful. Just try it. Trust me. You'll see once you try it.
And Bareilles, her last name is Bareilles.
Thank you.
So however that you are pronouncing. So my final thoughts are this. Here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs and the square holes, the ones who see things differently than when they're using their voice. They're not fond of the rules. They have no respect for the status quo. You can quote them, disagree with them, glorify them, or vilify them. But the only thing that you can't do is silence them. You cannot ignore them, because they're the ones who push the human race forward. And they're the ones who see things a little different. We'll call them the crazy ones. We see the genius because of people who are crazy enough to think that they can change the world, like each and every one of us, and you too. We're the ones who change the world. So thank you for joining us. Like, share, and subscribe. Hit the bell on the side. Make sure that you're on with us, because we're part of personal development productions. We're going to change how you've been thinking, how you are. We're going to use every method that we know to make sure that you're on top of your game. So that way that we can hear and we can see your progress. If you have something that you would like to say because you learned how to use your voice, again, put it in the comments. So, as we say, thank you.
Good night, everyone.